Hello, Gemini. Welcome to the Plaid Sheep Oracle. Oh, Gemini. You are really ready. I'm recording this on June 29th. It will post June 30th, 1 week before Uranus moves into your sign. And before he does that, he will meet with Venus. So on July 4th, Venus and Uranus meet at the very last degree of Taurus. And then she moves into Gemini on the 5th. And he moves in 2 days later on the 7th. In the wee hours of the morning here where I am. And she is showing up here in an interesting way. So we begin with own your power. I really love this image. There's something about that power is flowers. That maybe we are going to relearn power as a species. The scene underlying, and I think you know, is listen to your muse. You know. Although it can be tricky. Under that is shed your tears. And that I think is a call to this floral energy, to embracing creation, life force, rather than embracing, grief and sadness and all these terrible things. Now, the unseen underlying is protect the fledgling. And we're certainly going to talk about that. This floral fledgling. We have this Four of Blues card, Four of Cups. And that may have been, I don't think you're actually sitting in this. That maybe you were sitting in a sense of apathy, of boredom. But what's really coming through here is a longing, right? The longing of seeing this harmony happening. And being really attracted by that. And below the harmony is this Queen of Jazz, Queen of Wands, and then actually I'm just seeing now is the Ace of Blues, Ace of Cups, and then this Soul card that is an extra major arcana in this deck. And below that is the Aeon, which is Judgment. And then I'm just seeing now is the Lovers, which is your card. So, I think you've been looking with longing towards yourself. There's a beautiful fantasy novel by Barry Huggart called The Bridge of Birds. And I'm afraid this is a bit of a spoiler. But there's a character in it who she has this love for pearls and jade. She can't get enough of them. And it turns out that they are symbols of herself. She is, like, she has this longing. She was made to forget who she really was so that she could be hidden away. And so there's like this body-racking longing that she has for these things because she's reaching for herself. And that's kind of what this feels like here, that you've been longing for yourself. The underside is the first appearance of Venus with the Mama. She's the Empress. And then she appears again in an unusual way. The Five of Axes, the Five of Swords. The Five of Swords is Venus in Aquarius. But she shows up here a couple of times as disruption. This is Venusian disruption. The fives are disruption and change. And then we get the world. There's going to be a disruption to the world that you bring. And this card normally, seems like creation, right? That this person is imagining this city on the hill and that they're bringing it into being. But today, it's looking like somebody who's about to enter this space. Someone who has been, living apart. And is now going to enter this space. And do so, with fanfare. In this, kind of victorious way. And this is you, Gemini, of course. You have some idea, some creation. Might be a thing, might be a business, might be a perspective, I don't know what it is. But it is in opposition. Do I want to say that? It is in disruption of the status quo. Right? The Ten of Roots, the Ten of Pentacles, the status quo, the establishment. The point of view that you have about whatever it is in disruption to the status quo. And you've got Uranus at your back. He meets with Venus. This is disruption through love, through beauty. Right? It's a disruption of flowers. And so we have the Selkie. Come out of hiding, embrace who you really are. Speaks for itself. Below that, we have Planetary Wave. Soul Mission, trust the inner call, Soul Team. And then on the underside is one of my favorite cards, the Pink Dolphin. Celebration, fun, unbridled joy, open heart. All of these things. I feel like this uplift, it's it's not quite tears, but it's almost like tears you might have at a wedding or some sort of celebration, you know, so maybe somebody's graduation, or you know, just some really uplifting event where the tears come out of just so much emotion. Out of so much emotion. Really beautiful things. That there are really beautiful things beneath the surface. What's really driving you? True motives, breaking free. This is this muse. What's really the muse? So often, you know, we make choices out of fear or out of obligation, or what we think we're supposed to be doing, what we should be doing. You know, what other people tell us is the hip thing to be doing, what's trending. But what is the muse? What has the muse really been calling you to? Trust the timing. Trust the wave you came in on. Time is not running out. The healing lagoon. Rejuvenate, recovery, time to heal. It's safe to stop. And this, I think, is, right, it's safe to stop the chasing, the grasping, the clinging, the anxiety. And then the cosmic heart. Devotion, potency. Make your life a moving prayer. And I actually want to say, make your life a poem. Make your life a poem. Now I'm sort of being inspired to go and pull my year with Rilke and see if something wants to come out. Interestingly, we have July 19th. Which I think is just 2 days after Venus meets with Jupiter. She meets with Jupiter at about 14 degrees of Gemini. And I think it's on the 17th of July. This is from Rilke writing letters to a young poet. Whenever people fall in love, act out of an imagined fusion of their beings. Their every action is dictated by convention. Every relation colored by such confusion is conventional, however exotic, that is immoral, it might appear. Even separating would be a conventional step, an automatic alternative lacking in skill and creativity. Whoever takes it seriously discovers that, as with death, which is real, so with real love, there are no easy recipes. For both these undertakings, there are no universally agreed upon rules. But in the same measure that we begin as individuals to explore life's meaning for us, these great things come toward us to be met and known. The claims made upon us by the hard work of love are bigger than life and essential to our unfolding, and we are seldom up to them at the outset. But if we hold steady and take this love upon us as a task and a teaching, instead of losing ourselves in an easy and frivolous game behind which to hide the most honest questions of our existence, this may be felt as a small illumination and stepped forward by those who come long after us. That in itself would be a lot. So, now this I think for you is not, I mean, I suppose it could be that this thing that you're going to do is a relationship of some kind. But it doesn't really feel that way. I don't, this feels like something bigger than that. I mean, it could be, right, that a certain kind of relationship might disrupt the status quo of your family. That it might be, you know, kind of a smaller thing. But this does feel sort of a little bit bigger than that. So this right, this love and the, you know, the process of it, the challenge of it, I think is what Rilke is pointing to here. That's, you know, that's part of what makes it exciting and interesting. You know, if it was really easy all the time, it wouldn't be very juicy. So to really accept this challenge, we've been talking for a long time about Gemini committing to something. And right, committing perhaps to the challenge of this. The Five of Swords repeats. And below it is again the establishment. So the disruption of the establishment, and right below that is this moon, right? This is out of love. And then I'm just seeing now the sun, moon and sun, right? Really the self. The kind of core of the self. And also this Queen of Wands with vibrancy. And so there will be, because you are disrupting something, there is going to be resistance. And I think that is right where this protect the fledgling comes in. And how you do that may be individual to each of you. But we do have this King of Cups. And it says control, and not in a, you know, in an oppressive way, but to have command, I actually want to say. Rather than control, I want to say command of yourself. That you're, right, this resistance will cause discomfort. How do you respond to that? Do you respond in some automated way? Or do you have command of your responses to what comes your way? Are you emotionally independent? I often talk about the King of Swords as having command of his own mind, of having a free mind. You know, he makes up his own mind. He may take advice from people. He is not closed-minded. He is open to new information, to any information at all. that shows up, but he makes up his own mind. He keeps his own counsel. And the King of Cups is the same around his emotional life. He is not dragged hither and thither by his emotions. And so we have the Four of Swords with rest. The protection of this fledgling, the protection of your command over yourself. It may require lots of rest. It may require preaching to the choir. That is to say, coming back to, people who have, the same values and vision as you do. Having a core group of friends or compatriots. The fellowship. Maybe things that you read. I subscribe to Martin Shaw's Substack, and his email that came today talked about going back into his library and, pulling a bunch of books and then coming back to them. Right? To be reminded of what it is that moves him, to be reminded of his muse. You may need to remind yourself of your muse. Because there's going to be fast energy. Uranus does have your back. He is absolutely the energy of disruption. But he is also fast moving, especially through Gemini. So there may be a feeling, right? Like when you're pushed by the wind. And then there's this energy, this Eight of Cups. And rather than retreat, this often comes out for me, and it is now, as an image of bowling, that this moon is going to get rolled and will roll all of these cups. This disruption. And then here you are with that moon. Your creation, Gemini. The Princess of Discs, manifestation. Whatever it is you're bringing into the world has this disruptive element. And it seems like, interestingly, Uranus is moving through Gemini. That's considered the realm of the mind, of air, of Mercury. Although I see Mercury as much more multifaceted than just, this mind thing. I think he's much more complex than that. But there is more here. The disruption here seems more to this kind of physical status quo, to this emotional status quo. That the disruption of mind leads into these other places. So we have this Wastelands card. It says sustainability, slow down, tend to your garden. But I often see this card more as creation, that there's this flow of water that's coming in, and you're on this little green patch, and the green patch is going to grow. Right? Because we also have after the rain here at the bottom. which says silver lining, relief, hope, mercy, it's over, acceptance. There is a sense with this after the rain and this wastelands of a kind of breaking of tension. You know, that tension that you feel before a thunderstorm. If you've allowed yourself to feel that, the building up that happens before a thunderstorm. You kind of see it in this card too. There's these storm clouds overhead. And here with this trust the timing, there's a sense that there's clouds that may be building. And I've been talking, or the cards have been talking, the messages have been talking about a storm is coming. But there's a feeling here of the storm having passed. Below this we have trust the seasons. Embracing change, cycles of life, transition, growth. To trust the energy. Often in the astrological community, there's lots of, how do you, this big transit is coming. How do you meet it? How do you deal with it? Well, maybe you deal with it by not dealing with it. By embracing it, by running with it, by knowing that it's bringing the storm that clears. And then interestingly, we came out with two cards. There's the bud, which says potential, promise, it's about to happen, keep going. And the thorn, protection, boundaries, clear communication. So this protection of the fledgling, of the bud. And I think it's less, this is a kind of peaceful protection. This is protection through keeping your own peace. Rather than a kind of active protection where we're not talking about the sort of Seven of Wands. This is through protecting your peace. Through knowing yourself, through listening to your muse rather than to the news. Or to, even received wisdom, whatever is floating around on TikTok or Instagram or X or wherever it is. Formal advice. We have this Ten of Wands. I mean, there is this seeing yourself. She's here. She has this mirror. Seeing yourself, knowing yourself. And then dropping anything that you don't need to be carrying. Right? Below that we have the devil. All the ways that we are seduced in a negative way, the way that we're kind of pulled into distraction, pulled into other people's ideas, pulled into giving up our own muse. And at the bottom is the Dryad of kinship. So when you make a choice that is based on flower power, when you choose life, when you choose to support the life force, to act in concert with the life force, when you choose poetry, when you choose peace, when you choose the pink dolphin, when you choose the Empress, when you choose beautiful manifestation, when you choose to move from the heart, then all the support is behind you, with you. Right? The sun. Seeing yourself reflected in the sun. You know, Mercury, actually, your planet, is sitting in opposition to Pluto in Aquarius today. Their exact opposition was some hours ago, but it's still there. And, you know, when you have an opposition, sometimes if there's a planet that's trine one and sextile the other, it's a bit like a release valve, right? A place. And that planet happens to be Neptune in Aries. And also a little bit of Saturn in Aries. But mostly Neptune, this imagination, this willingness to see something completely new. To dream of something completely new that has not existed before. And then we have walk with me, this walking away from the past. And then what we see what Source sees. How Source, how the life force see. How the muse sees, how your heart sees. And the invocation, the dance, right? This moving prayer, this moving poem. Is there a second one that wants to come out? It wasn't really a poem, was it? Advice from a poet, but So from April 30th, the donor. This is what he had ordered from the Painters Guild. It's not that the Savior himself had appeared to him, or even that one single bishop ever stood beside him as depicted here, gently laying his hand upon him. But this perhaps was all he wanted, to kneel like this. He had known the desire to kneel, to hold his own outward thrusting tightly in the heart, the way one grasps the reins of horses. So that when the immense might happen unpromised and unpaid for, we might hope that it wouldn't notice us, and thus, undistracted, deeply centered, it would come closer, would come right up to us. The immense, Gemini. That the immense might come closer to us. To follow the muse, you know, a card popped out. It was this King of Wands, and I knew it immediately when I saw him that this was a representation of the muse. Still, quiet, peaceful, confident. The King of Wands. In command of inspiration and his response to inspiration. Gemini. You have a call to do this thing, to be a disruption. And I want to say that the disruption is what is happening, but isn't the goal, right? The flowers are the goal. This contact with the immense, this creation of what the muse calls you to is the goal, is where you're going. The disruption is part of the means, is part of the side effect. For you, for the rest of us, the disruption might be a little bit of the main event, perhaps. That when we encounter you, that you will bring us this disruption that we need. So don't flinch from that, Gemini. I wish you great fun and expansion and joy, Gemini. And I will see you next time. So long.